Hello. This is my assignment for the fourth week of this chapter. Basically, going over some of the not necessarily do's and don'ts of the industry, but what would you do kind of a situation. Um, and looking at it here, after I read some of the information from the chapter, as well as looked at some of the basic laws that places have to follow here. Specifically like North Carolina, and I tried to find some Charlotte stuff, but it kind of got a little too detailed and kind of hard to find without deeply researching into like local laws using textbooks and stuff like that, which obviously I have a little trouble finding online. Also, I do have to apologize. I am fighting a pretty heavy head cold right now, so I sound congested. That's why. With that being said, though, as the owner of this facility, obviously there is a major expectation of holding true to state and federal laws regarding OSHA, safety, FMLA, stuff like that. I mean, that all the stuff that we talked about last week is like a necessity. Um, and with that being said, because of the fact of it being a manufacturing facility, I assume that there are jobs that might be not necessarily hazardous, but definitely hands on jobs. Not everyone is at a desk kind of a situation. And because of that, with the positive test of over a third of my facilities for drug residue, that's going to raise a huge red flag for me. And at that point, I'm probably going to implement a drug testing policy. Um, well, before I even get that, one thing I'd like to say is, in order to get hired for my company, you would have to pass a drug test. Period. Now, with the exclusion of maybe marijuana, simply A, because most states are making it legal now, either medically or just recreationally. With that being said, I'm not necessarily going to care if you use it recreationally. You will not use it on my property, period. Because it is still illegal in North Carolina, and I still have to hold true to that. Now, if you have a medical script, that's different. And I can't remember if North Carolina was or not. I don't think it is. But it's not going to be as big of a deal as like if you're a heroin addict or something like that. So if my drug testing shows that it's just that, I'm probably not going to pay attention too much to it because yes, it is technically illegal right now, but there's legislation in place that is in progress that is possibly going to overturn that within the next 6 months to a year anyway. So I'm not going to be as overly concerned. Now, if it's other stuff, if it's your cocaine, crack, heroin, anything that tests positive for that kind of stuff, or the obvious abuse of prescription drugs, like everybody is not going to be on Adderall. Like if I have like a large amount of Adderall or something like that, I'm gonna raise flags. At that point, I will probably do uh, not every single person's getting drug tested, but I'm going to drug test probably a percentage or portion of each department based on the number of people who are in that department. Maybe half. So if there's 10 people in a department, five of them get tested. I will also put out a bulletin or a memo to the whole company saying, if you come to me and admit to it without testing before we test, then there will be consequences, but you will not lose your job. Guaranteed. You will. I'm willing to keep my workers and help them because it could be a situation where they're addicted and they're not making this choice as a choice. Like I know that gets into the big debate of it's a choice, it's not a choice, it's a disease, it's not a disease, whatever. I don't believe that it's necessarily disease. Heart problems, cancer, that's a disease. It was a choice that you made once upon a time, but I understand that it has turned into a disease. I'll leave that to that. Um, if you do test positive for the drug test and didn't admit to it, then there will be a suspension, and from that point, we will figure out based off your position, your history with the company, um, like with what's the word I'm looking for? Your I can't remember it. Basically, your punishment, like if you've been a problem or if you've been a star employee, that kind of thing. Like if you've been an absolute issue and then you test positive, you're probably going to get fired, and it's going to be on undergrounds of this. Unless again it's marijuana, then we'll. I'm not going to like you, but I'm probably going to let it slide because then that makes an opening door of like, oh, all these other people tested positive, but you didn't do anything about them. Why me? Kind of a thing. So um, with that being said, my facility is flexible. We will not tolerate drugs, but we're not going to just axe people left and right because of this. It's going to be a big deal, but it's not going to be job ending. Um, with that being said, though, bringing up some of the other controversial topics, to use the Mr. Milner situation. Like I said, since he immediately tested positive, or he admitted to it before he tested positive. Like I said, I'm gonna put him in some type of not necessarily rehab program, but I might be willing to help him. I might either find a rehab program that's gonna work around him working. Like he'll take classes an anonymous class, like Alcohol's Anonymous or whatever, just for drugs instead of that. Um, but regardless, I'm willing to help him as an employee. Or I really shouldn't say him because that brings me to my other point. But with that being said, I will help that person and I'm not just going to immediately fire them. Someone just came in my room. Sorry. Beyond that, though, the other point of him versus her, since he identifies as gender fluid, um, I'm going to implement a rule that I respect and I acknowledge who they want to be, and I will support them in that, and I would want them to feel comfortable with who they are. Um, being LGBT myself, I'm pretty understanding. But with that being said, I have to do what's going to make the whole company comfortable, and I'm going to have to implement a rule saying that Mr. Milner is going to respect and understand that the bathroom facilities are for either a man or a woman, and that if he wants to use the facilities, he has to either use the one that is what he was originally born as a man, a cis man, as they like to describe it, or he will have to make sure that all women that use the particular bathroom that he will be using are comfortable with it. Um, Basically, if any women are like, no, we don't want you using our bathroom, unfortunately, we are going to have to hold that true because changing a rule for one that affects the many is kind of stupid, in my opinion. But that'll be a difficult one to work around, but we'll work around it. As far as anything else, I want my employees to talk. I want ideas to be exchanged. I don't mind the idea of politics in the workplace or not gossip, but like any controversial topics or something like that. With the exception that as long as it doesn't break any rules or cause situations of bullying in the workplace or harassment. If it's harassment or bullying, or if it becomes an issue, like if someone constantly hammers Mr. Milner because he's gender fluid, then that person's going to get fired. Period. That's sexual harassment. I'm not tolerating it. If another person is a Democrat and just really, really does not like the president, then you can't go around preaching hate towards the president. I will not accept it in my workplace. And vice versa. If there's someone who's super, super supportive of Mr. Trump, then you can't go around and harassing people who don't like you, or don't like him rather, and probably don't like you. Um, so I'm okay with people being people, but I don't want it to become a distraction. As soon as it becomes a distraction, it gets squashed. I'm done with it. Um, some other things that might be considered are, uh, oh, sorry, the whole email thing and the whole internet thing. I will live by the policy of there will be certain blocks to certain websites, like obviously porn and stuff like that. That is not for the workplace. I don't want it there. There's been pretty extensive research into social media and how people would assume that it actually reduces productivity. But there has been seen that sometimes if you allow your employees to have their Facebook or have their Instagram or are able to access those sites while at work, yes, it's a distraction, but as long as you make your employees want to work for you, they're willing to continue to do work and might ignore those things. But allowing them to have it at least allows them to take a break, that little 5 minute away from everything else, and just kind of breathe a little bit. Um, Emails will be not necessarily monitored. I would like for emails to stay work appropriate or necessary for work. Um, I'm not going to actively search for things that are against policy. I might have something within the server that has like keywords on it or anything like that. Or like maybe if it notices that a lot of emails are getting sent by the same person that have some type of picture built into it or something like that, it might raise a red flag. So if they're sending a bunch of memes, then obviously that's not productive and we might have to have a conversation. But other than that, emails are they're emails. I'm not really overly concerned about it. Um, Internet use will be monitored for the most part. Um, I'll know what websites you're accessing and how long you're on them. Uh, but I'm not necessarily gonna eliminate you from being able to do certain things. Again, except for the exception of like pornography or anything that's obviously should not be at the workplace. I don't want you looking at stuff that is going to be vulgar or illegal or anything like that while at the workplace. But if you want to scroll Craigslist because you're looking for a chest cabinet for your house on your spare time, or if you want to reply to a comment on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, that's fine. I'm not here to be evil. I'm here to be up with new age. I understand what younger generations, as well as the older generation, now that they're kind of catching on and stuff like that. Um, I want to work in a work. I want to control the workplace that I would want to work in, and I've always hated micromanagement. So as long as you do what you're supposed to do, and we're getting done what we're supposed to get done, I'm pretty flexible. I'm okay with that. So. Let me know if you have any questions. I would love to hear what you come up with, what questions you have. Hopefully, I can answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you.